Hi everyone, it's Kino here. Thanks so much for tuning in and joining me for another day of this 30-day Ashtanga Yoga Challenge. It's so awesome that you are committed to the practice. And I really wanted to take a moment and just thank you for showing up and putting in the work. I know that it is no easy task to stay really committed to the yoga practice. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Now, as we cross the hurdle of the really strong gateway pose of the Ashtanga Yoga method and go into the second half of the primary series, here are some very interesting things that I want to kind of draw your attention towards. When you make the transition from the beginning portion of the primary series to the latter portion of the primary series, there's a kind of change or shift in methodology that is very important for you to think about. These are postures which have a different aim and a different goal. As the primary series is building up to that kind of crescendo moment of Supta Kurmasana and Kurmasana position, the latter portion of the primary series is kind of, you can almost think about it as a descent down the mountain. And even though the asanas are still quite challenging and offer a lot of really, really deep learning, many students will find these asanas a little bit more approachable, easier to modify, and have just a little bit more kind of comfort in these asanas. Now that's where you really want to kind of raise a little bit of your awareness, because if you think that a posture is easy, then it's highly likely that we're missing some of the deeper inner work that you really need to kind of show up for when we're working with these asanas. Additionally, the lesson of the second portion of primary series, when you think about descending down the mountain, I want you to think about kind of recalibrating the nervous system so that you've built up to this really deep spinal flexion, and now the spine is opening back up. So we're rolling through the spine and opening the spine back up and preparing for the work that's coming very soon. At the very end of primary series, we start to introduce back bending. So when we're thinking about making the transition from a very deep spinal flexion to a spinal extension, we need to give the spine a little bit of kind of relief along the way. And so that's what I want you to understand, that when we work in that second portion of primary series, there are a lot of asanas that help you roll through the spine, and that rolling action acts, as we already discussed, in one action like a massage. And now we make the transition into using that rolling action to build dynamic flexibility and strength. And dynamic flexibility is flexibility that you can control and activate into, rather than flexibility that you can passively release. In order for you to understand the difference between dynamic flexibility and passive flexibility in today's challenge session, I want to guide you through a very short practice that covers both dynamic and passive flexibility for the asana called Upavistha Konasana. So Upavistha Konasana, this wide angle posture where the legs are spreading wide apart. Now, the first thing to understand in Upavistha Konasana is that there are two parts. There's A and B. And in Upavistha Konasana A, we're working our flexibility, and in Upavistha Konasana B, we're expressing the flexibility that we have already sort of accumulated and developed. So I'll show you the postures first, as I've been doing, and then we'll go through how we're going to approach our way into them. So Upavistha Konasana A, hold on to the outsides of the feet. Inhale, prepare. Exhale, fold. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, gazing at the nose tip. Inhale, lift the head up. Exhale here. Then lean back and you lift the feet up off the ground, holding on to the outsides of the feet. Lift the chest up and look up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this is Upavistha Konasana. And you cross your feet, pick it up, and jump back. Now, let's break down how that actually works so you can understand the hip movement. Okay, so give me one moment to organize everything. Now, exhale, you're going to come down to the constructive rest posture, which is really, really nice. So we're obviously going to start off with a passive movement. And I'm lying here on a blanket just to make it nice and cozy. So let's take 5 breaths in constructive rest, which will help your sacrum settle on the ground. So count with me for 5. 1. Down-regulate the nervous system. 2. 3. 4. 4, 5. That was good. Draw the knees up into your chest and straighten the legs for Viparita Karani. That's looking good. And we'll hold that for 5 breaths. 1, 2, 3, 4, almost there, 5. Okay, now if we were working a straddle position rather than Upavistha Konasana, we would just directly open the legs from here. So you can try that and experience what is the feeling? What is the feeling more just like a middle split? Okay, so this is kind of, I don't really have a great middle split, to be honest with you. So this is the feeling of a middle split. And many people mistake this as Upavistha Konasana. This is not the Upavistha Konasana position. So bring your legs back up to Viparita Karani. Close the hip joint a little bit and then open the legs to a V shape. And when we have this V-shaped position, this is where we're working Upavistha Konasana. So we have a little external rotation and the thighs are lifted up. Then reach out and hold on to your ankles. If you cannot hold the ankles, then just hold on to the knees. And so you want to find a good grip. And we'll hold this for 5 breaths. And notice my sacrum is on the ground. We're going to practice sacrum off the ground in another moment. All right, so here we go. 1, 2, 3. So remember, you can hold on to the knees if it's too stressful. 4. Notice the different foot position. So it's not a straddle. It's not a middle split. Okay, Upavistha Konasana is a little bit different, like a wide V shape. 5. Then you can hold on to your ankles and we'll practice lifting the sacrum off the ground. All right, so let's hold for 5. 1, 2, and this gives a little core integration so you can tuck your tailbone. 3, 4, and 5. Release, hold underneath the knees and back into the center, okay? So that's the flexibility that we're working. It's a hip flexion and an external rotation and a control deep down in the center of the pelvic floor. Now, there's also another part that comes up, which is Supta Konasana, which we can take a look at as well since we're already in the reclining position. So Supta Konasana has a little bit the feeling of a shoulder stand. So if you have any neck issues, then you don't want to work on Supta Konasana at all. Instead, you might want to just repeat what we just did from the reclining position and open and hold on to the big toes from here. So now in the Supta Konasana position, we need to be comfortable enough, say in plow posture, in halasana, to get the feet over the top of the head. So we inhale and lift the hips up off the ground and then holding the hips up. Well, once your toes touch the ground, then you can open the feet. And then holding on to the big toes, lifting the hips up and keeping the spine relatively straight. We want to avoid big rounding like this and instead push the spine over and lift the sitting bones. Traditionally, we stay for 5 breaths. And if this again is very difficult, but you want to try, you can keep the hands on the lower back to give a little extra support. If your feet do not touch the ground, you definitely want your hands on your lower back, or you can just repeat what I've already shown you from lying down. Then, when it's time to come up from Supta Konasana, we relax the back, and then inhale, use your strength to come up. So now we're here in this kind of precarious balance. So let's talk about what to do in coming down from this position. I'm just gonna scoot back a little bit. So once you're balanced up here, then an intermediary stage to go down is to bend your knees, put the heels on the ground, and then open, okay? Another version is to come up here, release, use that dynamic flexibility, land the feet, and then hold on. Finally, the last option. So our last option, make sure I have enough space to do it, is if you have good flexibility, right, you've got good flexibility, then you can bend your feet back. bending the elbows, and you're going to pull the calf muscles forward, and then exhale, land on the calf muscles. And you want to have a good flexibility if you're going to try that. So you have 3 options to go down. Inhale, we come up, and exhale there. Good. So now let's take a look at Upavistha Konasana itself. So in Upavistha Konasana itself, we can come off of the blanket, and let's take a look at a couple of different ways to work with Upavistha Konasana. All right, so I'm going to open the legs out. And again, many people make the mistake of thinking, I need to do a really wide, big, crazy straddle. So they come forward and they push and try to do a middle split. But then you can't hold on to your feet from the middle split. So this is why we want just a wide V shape, okay? So we've just got that nice kind of wide V shape. Remember, it's a Konasana posture. So it's similar to Baddha Konasana, and we straighten out the legs and we have this wide V shape. If from seated, this is already quite stressful and your back doesn't feel in a neutral position, this is an asana you do not want to elevate the sitting bones. We have to keep your legs very active to support the hamstrings and the attachments of the inner thighs. Next, you can take a bolster and wrap it closely in. And just like we did for preparing for Baddha Konasana yesterday, you can exhale and fold forward over the bolster. And this gives you a big support, and it'll take kind of the activation and the tightness away. So this support for your chest also trains you in what part of your body you actually want down in Upavistha Konasana. So many people put their head down and then around the back, and that can be very useful, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But ideally, you want to lead with your chest in Upavistha Konasana. Engage the legs, and then you can practice taking the hands over to the feet, or you can just relax. So let's have 5 breaths in whichever version you like, either just relaxing or hands to the feet. 1, 2, and you're really welcome to find any hand position that's comfortable for you. 3, 4, almost there. 5, good job. Inhale, come up. Exhale there, shake it out. You can bend the knees, straighten them. Then we're gonna move that bolster over to the side. We're gonna grab the yoga blocks, and the yoga blocks give a slightly different type of support. So now, if you don't just wanna do like a long hold and a passive release, you may wanna set up the yoga block in line with your forehead. Then find out where you can catch. Maybe you can just hold the knees, that's totally fine. Maybe you can hold the shin bone, totally fine. Maybe you can hold the ankle, totally fine. Maybe you can hold on to the outsides of the feet. This is important. Whatever place you're holding, do not pull. Instead, push a little bit. So you can kind of lock your shoulders in place. If I pull, then I'm gonna pull and put too much pressure on the inner thighs and too much pressure in the posture. So from wherever you are, so this is like option number 1 on the knees or even on the ground. Option number 2, the shins. Option number 3, the ankles. Finally, the feet. And again, you push rather than pull. So push to stabilize the shoulders. Then exhale, you can think about putting your chest on the yoga block and seeing if that works. However, if there's a lot of pressure, then you can grab the second yoga block and place the forehead on the second yoga block and the chest on the first one. You can adjust that according to your body height and the range of motion that you have, okay? So now let's continue this asana a little bit, all right? So when we're working Upavistha Konasana, here we are, we come forward. Now let's say I'm not gonna use any props, so I've shifted forward, all right? So inhale, we prepare, and then exhale, fold. Now notice the kneecaps are lifted, my legs are very active. That activation goes all the way down to the pelvic floor. Then do not roll the shoulders forward or round the back. Instead, you're gonna lead with your chest. And again, locking the shoulders in so you get kind of a push sensation. I'm gonna get the hair out of my eyes there, okay. So you have that push sensation, and then the femurs are rolling back and you're trying to keep the sitting bones reaching back depending on how much you pivot inside of the pelvis. You might be able to get the sitting bones a little off the ground, and that's totally okay, but you don't wanna force it. Then ideally chest down, and then eventually chin down. However, you can also work like this. Chest comes forward, forward, forward. Maintain the integrity of the torso. And then exhale, head down. And you just give yourself a resting point, an ending point. Next, nose down. Next, chin down. Next, chest down. And then you can kind of work through it like that, all right? My hair is doing funny things. Now, when it's time to come up, this is where you need that activation. So you're going to draw the femurs into their sockets and use that push strength in the shoulders. So you push, exhale here, then release. Turn back over to the side. All right, turning back over to the side. And let's go through that again. And I'll show you like another option. So let's say you're here, okay? And then you fold it forward, and that's as far as you got. So remember, you could use a block or you could just stay here. So you inhale, prepare, exhale, fold. And let's say that's the maximum fold that you got. And you go a little more down. See, when you go down, don't bend the elbows, but slide the hands. So if you start here, then as you get a little more flexible, just slide the hands. And that's why you push, not pull. Push, don't pull, okay? Then notice, where am I gripping and where's my comfortable grip? Then inhale, come up. Exhale here. Release. Then watch the pelvis, rotate the tailbone under. Then as you rotate the tailbone under, easy way, bend the knees, bring the knees up, take the same grip, straighten the legs. Then lift the chest up and you can hold, all right? Now hold whatever grip was comfortable for you in Upavistha Konasana. Lift the chest and breathe. So if you are comfortable holding the outside of the feet, then inhale, come up, exhale there. Release, rotate the tailbone under. This is that dynamic flexibility. Hold on to the feet, the outsides of the feet. Open as much as is comfortable for you, and then lift the chest up. Good. Gaze upwards. 1, 2, 3, 4, almost there. 5, release, test your dynamic flexibility, cross the feet, right? I'm gonna move that blanket out of the way, and then we can just go easy, come on back, find a good version of our friend the plank pose. Exhale, come on down. We're gonna take cobra pose for a little bit to release the fronts of the hips. The fronts of the hips now have been in a really deep flexion, so let's just hold it there for 5. 1, lift the kneecaps, soften the butt muscles. 2, 3, almost there. 4, 5, that's good. Relax. Let's draw the knees in and child's pose for a moment. Relax. Come on back to neutral. And then inhale all the way up. Good. Come on back down to seated. Close your eyes for a moment. And as you close your eyes for a moment, just reflect on Upavistha Konasana, this wide angle posture. And notice where your limitations are. Did you think it was a middle split and you were going too wide apart? Are you restricted in your forward bend? And then see if you can make peace with that, giving yourself the time to kind of accept wherever you are in your journey. And then a nice long deep breath in. And as you exhale, let's open the eyes and start to come back. Very good. So Upavistha Konasana is an asana that unfortunately, if you get too much ahead of yourself and you don't understand how to relax and at the same time how to properly support the muscles and joints of the body, then what can happen is it's kind of easy to, unfortunately, potentially injure yourself if you push too hard in this asana. So be very sensitive to any feelings you have up around the inner thighs, the groin area, around the attachments of the hamstrings, of the sitting bones. So really just be very, very, very aware of all the sensations in the body. And don't fight, don't force, just go slowly, slowly, step by step. And I promise you, it will start to make sense over many years of practice. Whenever you're working dynamic flexibility postures, look for both the strength and the flexibility. Don't only look for the flexibility, you have to focus on equal parts in order to actually find the balance in the asana. So So thanks so much for joining today, everyone. I really appreciate it. Tomorrow we'll have a more complete practice, and I have another student model coming in for tomorrow. So stay tuned and keep the inspiration to keep practicing. I send you a lot of love. Thanks so much, everyone. Namaste.